This is Unbridled with Susan Kayne, presented by Thoroughbred. Family owned and operated since 1949. Thoroughbred produces specially designed horseshoes, racing plates, and therapeutic products to enhance equine performance. Learn more at thoroughbredinc.com.
I've had the great privilege to catch up with America's most trusted horseman, John Lyons. John, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us. It's really a joy to meet with you in person. You have such a huge following in the horse world, and we're so generous to be here at the American Farriers Association. Tell us a little bit about how you're going to help horse owners today.
Well, I think the idea, first of all, they're just friends, whether they're farriers or horse owners or horses themselves. It's basically, we just get together, share ideas, and try to figure out what each of us have learned and try to pick and choose the best of the methods we learn. As far as helping the farriers today, the most important thing I think would be to understand that we need to change if we want changes in others. Others being our clients that we work with, the horse owners, or the horses themselves. So it doesn't work very well to point the finger at somebody else, including the horse, and say you need to change. The change really is initiated in us, and learning how to make changes in us and see the reflection of those changes in others around us is really the most important thing.
And what advice can you give to men and women to help make that paradigm shift within themselves?
Well, to recognize you actually have more influence than we really think we do. You can walk into a convenience store and be really grumpy and abrupt and really on edge and see the person behind the counter, see other people in the store react to you. So you really have a greater sense of influence than you really think you do. You can go down the street, walk into the next convenience store, and have a big smile, say hi to somebody behind the counter, and all of a sudden the whole atmosphere changes. So recognizing that you truly are more important than you think you are, and that your attitude and how you're thinking, how you are responding to others really has a huge effect on them. So it's a game. You know, it's learning how to play a game. Our kids, for an example, our kids know us better than anybody. And so they know what we're going to say before we say it. We walk into the room that's already a mess, and they already know that we're going to get mad. We're going to say these things. I mean, they can push our buttons better than anybody. Well, what if we just change? Rather than doing what we normally do, what if we played a game with ourselves before we ever walked into the room and we said, you know, what I'm going to do this time is going to be completely different. All of a sudden we shock, you know, that kid because we give them a response that they weren't expecting, and all of a sudden from that response we see a different change in them. So the key is to ask ourselves, what change do I need to make in me to see a reflection of that change in my horse or in the people around me?
When relating that analogy to people working with horses, even experienced horsemen and women are like, well, it's just a horse. It's an animal. They don't seem to make the connection that it's more than that. What's your answer?
Well, my answer is we have to get on a deeper level of understanding truly what the horse is. The horse is not more intelligent than either you or I or anybody, any person. A horse only has a certain level of intelligence, but he has some great qualities that I can learn from to put into my life. Some of the qualities that God put inside the horse when he designed the horse, and I believe, and I think I could show anybody why the horse is God's most favorite animal on earth. Well, if truly the horse is God's most favorite animal on earth, he put in the horse some of the if truly the horse is God's most favorite animal on earth, he put in the things he likes the very best. Well, one of the things he likes the very best is adaptability. Adaptability means changeable. And so to say that the horse is stubborn is a completely gross misunderstanding of what a horse is. There's more horses in the world today than there ever have been, and yet there's less use for them, practical use for them. So why are there more horses today? Well, it's simply because they have adapted to our life. So they're very, very changeable, very adaptable. In other words, he wants us, God wants us to be adaptable, not to be demanding, rigid, stubborn in our own way. He wants us to be adaptable and guidable and directable in our own lives. Well, he put that's one of his favorite qualities, so he put that inside the horse. So it's understanding that he made the horse as a herd animal. Forgiveness is of huge importance to God, and so he put a huge amount of forgiveness in the horse, and the forgiveness that he put in the horse is exactly mimics the forgiveness that he gives us. He loves us unconditionally. God, so does my horse. I mean, that is so cool to know that no matter what I do, it seems like, no matter how many mistakes I've made, no matter what I've done in my life, my horse still loves me. Now, and it's very, very similar. God loves me no matter who I am, what I did, or what I've done in the past. His love is unconditional, and he goes to great lengths to teach us that his love is unconditional. But his forgiveness is very conditional. It's based on two things. Number one, that we admit that we're wrong. And number two is that we will try to change. Somebody can beat a horse in the head every day for 20 years and have that horse so head shy, just scared to death. You or I or anybody can come along and do two things, and within a matter of a couple hours, the horse won't be head shy anymore. The two things are, number one, stop hitting him in the head, the obvious. Number two, convince him that we're not going to hit him in the head. And at that moment, he will not be head shy anymore. Well, does that mean that he forgot about 20 years of abuse? No. He looked at me and he said, I see you have changed. And because you have changed, I will not hold the past against you. So even though the horse is not more intelligent than me, what I can do is I can learn some really important things, from the horse. I can learn to be more adaptable in my life. We want our horses to turn over their lives to us, to let us be in control, to let us tell them where to go and buy that scary object and don't be afraid, etc. We want him to turn over the reins of his life to us. Well, how easy is that? Do we really want to turn our reins to our life over to God or to anybody? And so it's a great experiment to do with ourselves sometimes is when we don't agree, let's say with our wife or with our husband or with somebody else. We really don't agree with them in what they want us to do, but we're not going to get hurt by it. But something, say, you know what, I'm just going to turn over, control of my life to you for this moment. And it helps me understand what the horse goes through, when I ask him to turn over his life to me. To understand what courage that a horse has, when we ask a horse to step off into that creek or to step on that tarp or to step on that bridge that very first time, that horse is making a life and death decision. He doesn't understand getting hurt or going to a veterinarian or just getting sewn up a little bit. He doesn't understand that. He understands living or dying. All right? So he is making a life and death decision on that trail ride. We get mad at him if he doesn't make that decision in 5 minutes. We're already starting to push or kick or say, get over here, don't be stupid, etc. And we try to unjustify his fear. and to recognize that we're asking him to step off into a pit of poisonous snakes. Now, if one of those poisonous snakes bite him, let's just put it in terms of us. If I ask you, if you were deathly afraid of snakes, and I said, what I want you to do, I'm going to fill this arena a foot thick in snakes, and I'm going to ask you to calmly walk across them. And now, if one of the snakes bites you, you're going to die. I mean, there's nothing we're going to do. They're going to bite you, and you're going to die. And so, and you're afraid of snakes, and do you think it would be that I would be reasonable and fair? And you'd think, well, John's, really a nice, soft-hearted guy. Within 5 minutes, if I brought a whip out and started beating on you and saying, get in those snakes, or would you think I would be justified in 30 minutes? The horse is more likely, to go out here. Did I work with you for 30 minutes without losing my temper, without getting mad, without getting frustrated? Well, surely after 30 minutes, you would think that I would be justified in bringing that whip out and start whipping on you and saying, just get in that arena. Well, maybe not in 30 minutes. How about 2 hours? What if I worked with you for 2 hours? I said, the snakes won't bite you. It's okay. I'm a snake whisperer. I get down in the snakes and I show you that they won't bite you. Even if I do all of that after 2 hours, do you really think, if it was you, do you really think I would be justified at that point of bringing that whip out and starting to beat on you and saying, hey, you just don't want to do this, get in those snakes? Probably not. When we ask that horse to cross something that he's afraid of or go by something that he's afraid of, that's basically what we're doing, and that's the decision that he's making. He steps off in those snakes. Now, if he trusts us and the snakes don't bite him, no big deal. Mm-hmm. If the snakes do bite him, if he trusts us and the snakes do bite him, he's going to die. Now, most of us normal people, which I'm right in the middle of, in less than 5 minutes, when we approach that scary object, we're saying to him, you're just playing games, you're not really afraid, you're just da-da-da-da-da, you're being stupid, get off into those snakes. And we're already pushing. We think people are amazing that will work with a horse for 2 hours, and not lose their patience, not lose their temper, and continue working with them. But if it was us, that was put in the same position, that 2 hours would seem like a very short period of time before we would step off in those snakes. So when we compare courage, to a horse, and you think about, sometimes a horse will make that life and death decision 2 or 3 or 4 times on a trail ride. And we just go home and have dinner. We don't even think anything about it, what he really did. So the horse can teach me, even though he's not more intelligent than I am, he can teach me to be more adaptable in my life. He can teach me to become more forgiving in my life. He can teach me, just like God. God says, John, you're to forgive somebody 7 times 70, a lot. And he does that because he knows it's better for me in my life. If I don't forgive somebody, then I have to carry the remembrance of why I'm angry at them, what they did. I have to relive that hurt over and over and over again. Where if I forgive them, in a way it's forgiving myself and freeing up my own life. Well, the horse, it's the same way. The horse can teach me, even after years and years and years and years of being treated one way, he can look at me and he says, John, I see you've changed today. And because you have changed, I will not hold the past against you. So the horse can teach me how to be a better person in my life. And he can teach me how to have more courage. He can teach me, how to turn over sometimes control of my life when I really don't want to, and let other people guide my life. So when we just look at the surface of a horse, we see this big animal who's not very bright, that we think is stubborn, doesn't want to get along, wants to throw his head, wants to be afraid. And, is teasing us and trying to get even, trying to embarrass us, da-da-da-da-da-da. And when we start looking deeper than that, we see so much more. And the more, I play with them and learn about them, the more I respect them for what they can teach me in my own life.
Did you personally have an epiphany or a moment that you had a major shift inside that began such a deep and profound understanding of horses and relating life's lessons to horses? How did that come about in your own life?
Well, I think that, there was a moment that I made a change in my life, and that was about over 30 years ago, and I was showing horses, and I was out in a pasture, and I was working a horse, getting him ready for a reining class, and I had all this junk on him, and I had the quick stops on him, and the tie downs, and some German martingale and stuff, and I'm doing what people are telling me to do with a horse, and I'm not having any better luck than they are. I'm winning some at the shows, but I'm losing some at the shows, and really the winning and losing wasn't the most important thing. It was what I was feeling inside as I'm doing all this stuff to this horse. And I just got so frustrated because I couldn't get this horse to do what I wanted him to do and do it in a consistent manner, that I got off, and I knew, and I just stopped for a minute in the pasture, and I thought, I'm going to have to stand in front of God someday, and I'm going to have to tell him why I did these things to his horse. And I just stopped for a minute in the pasture, and I thought, I'm going to have to stand in front of God someday, and I'm going to have to tell him why I did these things to his horse. And he'll forgive me, but especially when I maybe knew better. Maybe I knew I really shouldn't be doing this to an animal, or et cetera. He'll just kind of put his thumb on me and say, John, by golly. He'll give me a little bit of a hard time about that when I knew better. And I thought, it's not right. And so I climbed off the horse. I went to the tack barn. I got all the bits and all the quick stops and the martingales and the lunge lines, everything, down off the walls in the tack room, and took it to the burn barrel and burned it. And I kept out one snaffle bit, and I was just so frustrated, which every person who rides horses and wants to improve has gotten that frustrated in their own life with their horse and with themselves, because you feel like you just can't get it. You just, you don't know what to do, and you're so frustrated. You want to climb off the horse and throw him up against the wall, and you're just in tears from it. And so I was so frustrated that I kept out that one bit, and I said, if I could not learn how to train a horse using a snaffle bit, I was going to quit. I was just not going to climb on him again. And so that would be, to answer your question, that would be like the moment that changed my life. That started me down a different direction, and I decided then I was not going to listen to other people. It had to make sense to me, and so I had to start making sense of what I was doing with my hands and the reins and why I was doing it. It had to make sense to me, not do it just because somebody else said do this exercise or do that. So that would be the moment. The journey is still ongoing. I get little tiny bits of insight. The more that I work with them, I get a keyhole in a big room. I'm walking around this room, and I'm feeling around the walls and all that kind of stuff, and it's pitch black, and finally I see, or feel a little keyhole of a light, and I get down and I look through that keyhole, and all of a sudden it opens up another room. That keyhole might be part of an exercise that I'm already doing, I've already been doing for a year. All of a sudden I see the exercise slightly different. I see something just a tiny bit different, and I focus in on that part and all of a sudden that part opens up another whole room. So it's just like we're in this hotel, and it's got all these different rooms. A horse and his performance has the same thing. It has lots of different rooms. It's more than a lifetime, of learning. We couldn't ever learn all the things there is to learn about a horse. And he's not mystical. He's just a great animal, and I love working with him, and I love working. But the horse himself, I couldn't just surround myself with the horse and have fulfillment in my life. It takes the people as well.
Well, we've got a big crowd of people outside, and I hate to cut this short, but I can hear the rumbling. It's been such a joy to speak with you, and we've got horse people on a journey out there, and I hope you make this a special moment for them. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, and thank you for letting me be on your show. I appreciate it very much.
Among John's fans, farrier friendlies, Brian Farkas.
I wanted to get into the horse business because I thought it was a no-hassle business. I was quite surprised that it is more. But then I thought, well, how can I make the process more friendlier? And so I started studying more horsemanship techniques. And through that process, I realized that horseshoeing doesn't have to be an old method of string them up and wrangle them and that kind of thing. And of course, through a lot of good mentors, people that I've had a chance to study with, they've showed me a friendlier way, and I thought I want to incorporate that not only in my training and my riding, but also in my shoeing. So as I got certified, and then I began to teach shoeing at a small community college in West Virginia, I wanted to implement the horsemanship as a key element to horseshoeing. John Lyons kind of encompassed everything that was practical about horses and everything that I knew farriers needed to know and be more aware of. So John was also very kind. I think he was surprised that that a certified farrier would take time out of my schedule to come and study with him and stuff like that. So that's how we became friends.
Next time on Unbridled.
These compounds that we're using in our pads are highly durable. They're used in our military soles, so they're they're responsible. They take care of our soldiers, and the long years of business that we've been involved in Vibram, we're now trying to help out horses. So
that's next week on Unbridled with Susan Kayne.